I speak now to Dr. Stan Moloabi, the Principal Officer of the Government Employees Medical Scheme. A very good afternoon to you, Doc. Thank you very much for your time. Serious, heartbreaking findings as far as the Minister is concerned. Where do you stand?
Good afternoon, Bravo, and good afternoon to the viewers out there. And I see that you start basically with a very emotive part of this very complex issue. And I'm saying it's complex simply because even if you just listen to what the minister is saying, there are several areas that need attention. Here, they're talking about the consequences of what may be perceived to be as a result. And I'm very consciously saying perceived to have been the result of this finding. The finding, as we have had, says that there's a reason to that there was racial classification or bias, and not everybody agrees with that, by the way. And we haven't come out at GEMS with the position because we said we need to study the report. But in response to what the minister was saying, we have known, and by the way, this has been a very, very long, uncomfortable a process that we are now where we have the final report that was released yesterday. And I think we need to progress on this thing. So the question that you're asking is that what do we say to the fact that maybe it is said that some health practitioners may have, they may have taken their lives, as the minister said. You know, when we were faced with things like this, that's when we start, digging deep into the detail of what we are faced with. And by that I mean, if let's assume a number of five health practitioners during this period, they say, well, I committed suicide, took my life. Do we have, they may have faced a situation where they are suspended from direct payment, which is the usual sanction, suspension from direct payment. And then there are meetings in our processes where there's engagements, extensive engagement to say, what can you afford? Because this you claimed fraudulently. And at that time, it is clear that was the transgression. So in instances there has been transgressions, and then a person falls into very difficult times financially. The question then becomes, if there is awareness that there was fraud, waste, and abuse, absolute fraud, while we have our approach is that we must engage and come to agreement. But when these sanctions are applied, the person gets affected negatively, as the minister said. And then depending on a person's resilience, they cannot live with what they find themselves in terms of some people, their practices, 60%, 80% of the practice, depending on where they are, it's from GEMS. If you lose 80% of your income, it is possible that you can react in this manner. So in short, all I was saying is there are different circumstances for all this, and this must be taken into consideration, I think.
Well, one of the big medical aid schemes, Discovery Health, says, look, for us, this report was flawed to begin with. It was based on unscientific assumptions and misinterpretation of what is essentially a very complex data.
Are you asking what we are saying on that?
Just your thoughts on that, on how this the advocate Newzroom and company, what they did or how they went about doing this was flawed in the first place, certainly according to Discovery Health.
Yeah. If you read the report where we responded, remember after the interim report, we were given 2 chances to submit specific responses to aspects where we felt that, so we have experts who interpreted the interpretation of the data by the investigation panels expert, in this case, Dr. Kimi, we raised many issues regarding issues of methodology, regarding issues of the technical issues like statistical significance, and we can't, I don't want us to go technical here, but the issues of sampling. So, for instance, there are issues that are raised like where sampling of what is a Black practitioner versus what is a non-Black practitioner, and this term is used in the report, was flawed. That is our expert submitted there. And this was basically on the basis that the names apparently were the same names. So if you are a Moloabi, if you are a Mvoko, you are considered to be a Black practitioner. So, but should you come across a Vandermeer, then it is assumed that you are a white or a non-Black practitioner. And we know there are areas, in our country where we have people who have surnames that could be those of Blacks, but they happen. There's a lot of Botas that I know who are Xhosa speaking and are from the Eastern Rand, and they are not classified as white. So those are the type of issues that were raised by our expert to say samplings, there are problems with certain things. But in the final report, the panel hasn't accepted our submissions and said, well, irrespective of what you have submitted in the interim, the findings against James will sustain. We have released a statement yesterday to say we're studying the report, and I wouldn't want to say to you, Voya, at the moment to say, well, we reject this or don't. We are studying the report at the moment, and we'll come back. If you give us the opportunity, then we'll come and explain our response.
Sure.
Not that we have not read the report as yet, but we really, want to do a good job. When we respond and put our position out there, it must have been well considered.
We will be here and we will give you that opportunity. But just as a parting shot, Advocate Nqoka says the legislation governing these processes, which is your Medical Schemes Act, lacks clear rules, leaving schemes to impose their own systems without sufficient oversight or accountability. That finger points at our legislators, and in my view, it's quite an indictment.
Well, the whole investigations was as a result of different interpretations of such sections or parts of Section 59 of the Medical Schemes Act. And it is clear, even the findings of the report are a product of interpretation of data. So it is clear from all of this exercise that interpretation of various aspects of our life, in this case, legislation, and also how we interpret Section 59. Now we are at a stage where we have a final report with findings that are based on interpretation of data. So I think it boils down to one thing: interpretation of what one is faced with. And, invariably in life, there's always a difference of opinion on how to interpret certain things. And I think this is really the big challenge. And that is why I indicated earlier on that not everybody agrees. It boils down to interpretation again.
Given our history, does this come as a surprise that we can't agree?
I would rather say, given our history, this is a very serious matter in terms of how everybody has, interpreted it. Particularly for us at GEMS, we know that we've never been racist, but somebody will say, but the report says. So I don't want us to get into that argument. The most important thing is we recognize the importance of us, believing the prescripts of the Constitution, all of us. And at GEMS, we've always done that. Here is an incident that seems to say differently, but I think we are here to ensure that, we have to deal with these things. And my end point here is that this thing has been hanging over us for too long. We must get on with life and see how we go into the future.
Dr. Moloabi, let me thank you for your time. And we will indeed certainly give you that opportunity to enlighten us once, of course, you've done what you reckon you still need to do in order to be able to inform us even better.